In the digital era, IT must function across an increasingly complex and sprawling attack surface, serving private and public clouds, networks, endpoints, Internet of Things, applications, and data to users everywhere. This ubiquitous digital infrastructure makes the interaction between users and data and all the layers in between increasingly complex and vulnerable. The threats and challenges are increasingly intense, from cyber attacks to security lapses, digital transformation to government regulations. Businesses are spending billions of dollars on security solutions, but the challenges are just getting worse. What if you could simplify and consolidate your infrastructure without compromising users to achieve comprehensive cybersecurity across the board? That's where VMware comes in. Our software-defined approach lets you address multiple lines of attack by inserting security measures everywhere that matters and adjust to quickly changing demands with built-in scalability. Modernize your data center with a software-defined approach that makes security intrinsic to the infrastructure, giving you the benefits in 3 key areas. You can consolidate and orchestrate security more efficiently across any cloud, public or private. You can secure access to any application from any endpoint with multi-factor and adaptive authentication. And you can extend and connect security policies end-to-end, from workspaces to the Internet of Things to the data center to any branch and to the edge with a virtual cloud network. Making security intrinsic with the infrastructure gives you greater control by automating and orchestrating key security measures like these: biometric authentication, endpoint protection, threat analysis, application security, IoT management, networking, data center security, encryption, threat and anomaly detection, cloud security, and compliance. The current state of cybersecurity demands that your IT security becomes intrinsic to your infrastructure and delivers the cybersecurity essentials in an end-to-end solution. At VMware, we've been refining this approach since our inception, and we have the track record, technology, and portfolio to help you modernize, scale, and automate to help you keep secure in these challenging times.
This is Rania ElRouby, NSX Lead Solution Engineer at VMware. Quick intro about the idea behind our live Tech Talk webinars. Before we start, at VMware we've decided to start these webinars to address the current circumstances and share with our community an update on the best practices that are essentials for their business continuity plans. And definitely security is an integral part that needs to be taken into consideration. Hence today's session. So it's my pleasure to host today's Tech Talk live session, which will be about VMware's intrinsic security vision. Or if you would like to get more info on the topic, you can click on the Contact Us form you'll find below. So let's start. So security has been one of the biggest challenges for IT for a very long time. There's no denying that the cyber threats is becoming a nuisance for most organizations, regardless of their size and regardless of their sector, which is obvious when we look at the number of security vendors in the market that are trying to cater for this demand. According to latest estimates, there are more than 3,500 companies in the cybersecurity field. It's a crazy number, of course. And companies are investing on average in about 80 security technologies. I'm also referring to large enterprises. That's their average. But did this solve our cybersecurity problem? Obviously not. We could argue that it actually complicated the solution, if anything. Moreover, we continue to read about mega breaches on the news. Actually, 2019 was one of the worst years for data breaches. Some threat research centers reported numbers in order of billions for the number of records that was breached only last year, which is extremely scary, of course. But I'm sure this is not a surprise, given our daily struggles as IT and security professionals in managing the security of our own organization. So, take for example how the current circumstances have pushed the speed of adoption of the business continuity solutions and applications, and how security teams manage this influx of requirements, and how much compromises they had to make for the business to go on. You know the saying, if it works, don't fix it, but in our situation, it's definitely the opposite. So at VMware, we believe security needs to be reworked, and that's what we have been busy doing for the past few years. Let's take a look at a couple of examples from the real world that demonstrates those reworkings that we need to be thinking about. Take, for example, those three types of attack categories. We have DDoS, password cracking, and cryptojacking. I'm sure you noticed that all those three attack categories use distributed computing in one way or another, which is perfect if you are on the offensive side, of course. It allows the attackers to create maximum damage with the minimum investment from their side. For example, in the DDoS, attackers are leveraging the botnets, which could be any type of endpoint. Maybe it's an IoT, even it could be a desktop or an IoT device to launch their massive attacks. And for password cracking tools, they now employ, by the way, same techniques for the usual password cracking, but in a distributed manner. That way it becomes faster, and they're able to crack more complex passwords in a faster manner. And finally, cryptojacking, where attackers use our extra CPU cycles to mine for bitcoins or other cryptocurrencies in general. Interestingly, on the other hand, we, the good guys, sitting on the defensive side, are always thinking about centralized, inline, the next big thing, hardware-based solution, right? That's probably one point of leverage the attackers have over us. Our second example comes from the automotive industry, so it kind of demonstrates why we think those 3,500 security companies are not solving the cybersecurity problem. Look at this, take a look at this interesting car model. If you are into cars, and I think you will be able to recognize it, it's actually one of the early models for modern cars. It looks funny, I know, but sure you notice it's missing a couple of things, but what we care about now is the lack of any security or protection measures compared to your car that's has been parked for some time now. I'm sure we're all in this now. So consider this challenge of securing the driver and the passenger of this car. So imagine taking this car and going shopping for protection mechanisms. So you need, of course, some protective glass, airbags, electric circuits to connect those airbags to some sensors, and so on and so forth. Can you imagine the effort that this exercise will require? I don't think this exercise will ever succeed, right? Not to mention the amount of effort and the money that it will require. Interestingly, that's exactly what we've been doing with our security control designs. We're always looking for the next control and trying to integrate it with one way or another into our data center, trying to fight for budgets for it, and then we hope for the best. And you know the rest of the story, of course. So what else is going wrong here? Number one is our focus on security threats. That definitely needs to change. because it's obvious we're losing. We're playing catch, and we're always 1 or 2 steps at least behind. So what we really need to do is reduce the attack surface as a basic step in our security strategy. The second thing is the lack of application awareness. So even though applications belong to our organizations, the security teams always struggle to get with the right information. So they go through cycles of asset inventory and asset classification, always reactive to the constant change on the application side, driven of course by the business. So maybe we should change that. Maybe we should leverage the context of our application that's already defined on our infrastructure, and we use that to define our security controls for it to be effective in any way. The third thing is that we're always looking at our next security product that maybe does this exceptional features and that we currently don't have in our environment. But like the car example, maybe our next security products should be actually part of the technology itself, should be baked into it. That it becomes more intelligence, and it takes less integration from our side. Pertaining to this last issue is that trade-offs that has always been classical in our risk mitigation practice. Because we don't have infinite budgets, we're always thinking of the highest risks and where to invest, which is of course legitimate, but not when it comes to our most basic security concerns, and I think that's the trick. So think about, to show this, think about the debate that was going on between the perimeter and data center security. Which is more important? The fact is, neither is more important than the other. For us to have a working security strategy, we should have both. So I think when it comes to what we need to do here is that when it comes to the basic security, we need to aim for bigger coverage and minimize as much as we can those trade-off decisions, especially when it comes to the basic security controls. Now that we understood the reasoning behind those 4 factors that are hindering maybe the cybersecurity from progressing and winning this war against the criminals, maybe we can now understand how VMware is leading this transformational change and disrupting the cybersecurity space as a whole. The idea is that at VMware we're leveraging the infrastructure to protect the apps and thus the data, and that's how we explain or go about in implementing VMware's intrinsic security vision, and which is the topic of our session today. So I'd like to highlight some of the main components for VMware's software stack, and how we can and how we've built in the security measured into this technology. Let's start with how we secure the workloads if they're powered by vSphere. So vSphere has an end-to-end secure architecture that provides essential security features such as the virtual machine isolation, hypervisor integrity through the TPM modules, built-in features for encryption for VMs at rest or in motion, and most recently this is extended through the acquisition of Carbon Black. I'm sure you've heard the news as well. Actually, we've been cooperating with Carbon Black on the threat intelligence for Vs before the acquisition, but through this acquisition we can now offer endpoint detection and response, next generation antivirus. We can whitelist applications and processes and so on, and so many more features. Actually, I'm just trying to highlight the main features that we provide. If we look at the end user computing solutions, we have Workspace ONE security features, which is which offers maybe multi-factor authentication, pair app tunneling to secure the traffic for each and every application, management and device posture through our MDM functionality, and most recently Workspace ONE Security Intelligence, where we gather all this information, provide more visibility to our security operators. Another important building block in a VMware portfolio, where we also integrated or we have the intrinsic security features. It's not integrated. We have the public cloud security offerings, VMware with the VMware Secure State that offers configuration and compliance, integrating into the dev and SecOps, extending security policy, and of course the extension of the security policy into the cloud, so you can design your controls in the data center and extend it to the cloud as well. So you have a consistent security policy across all your applications. Last but definitely not least is the network part. That's actually, I'm not going to highlight this one. I actually want to focus on this part for this, on the network for the second part of our session today. As you know, NSX is the leading software-defined networking and security platform that lies at the center of VMware's virtual cloud networking and software data center approach. It provides networking and security capabilities to applications wherever they reside, either as virtual machines, containers, or even as bare metal. Looking at how it evolved over the years, it becomes clear how intrinsic security vision was there from the very early beginnings. So when we launched NSX back in 2013, VMware has actually pioneered the concept of microsegmentation, allowing IT to build what's called zero trust networks, and actually was one of the main use cases for a software-defined networking. Interestingly, to this day, this is one of the main use cases that are employed by our customers, or NSX customers. And over the years, we've kept building on that. So we created more context-aware Layer 7 features in 2017. So we had app identification, user identification, and Layer 7 context through the creation of the security tags that I'm sure you're familiar with, and I'm sure you're using it in your data center now. In 2019, actually, it was a huge milestone for NSX because it actually had a complete software-defined firewall that provides Layer 4 to Layer 7 firewall capabilities, identity-based firewalling, FQDN whitelisting, and my favorite is the integrating the endpoint context into the firewall itself. And with the acquisition of AVI, we have the web application firewall. We have also advanced load balancing features, which is kind of revolutionary. And let's not forget the integration with the third-party network and endpoint security vendors that a lot of our customers actually who need the defense in-depth security strategies go for. The good or the wonderful news actually that this year we completed the stack by adding our distributed IDS and IPS to it. A lot of our customers, when we talk to them about roadmap of NSX, they actually used to ask, when is this going to happen, because they could see it forthcoming, and they were right. So similar to our distributed firewall, our distributed IDS benefits from the same intrinsic security capabilities available in NSX. So it's distributed, obviously, and it's application aware, and it's baked, and security is baked into the hypervisor itself. So I think this will totally disrupt how the traditional IDS market has been functioning for quite some time. To really understand how this will disrupt the threat inspection detection technologies, let's take a look at the traditional IDS and how they fit in the network architecture. So traditionally, your IDS and IPS sits at the boundaries of your network zone, and most of the time it's combined with your firewall appliance, for example. But that still means we need to hairpin traffic back to this appliance because it's hardware based. You run into throughput constraints. So with an IDS and IPS, we grew accustomed to inspecting only a small fraction of the data center traffic. It of course lacks any context of the application because at the end of the day it is a network appliance, so it has no visibility on those applications and the architecture, and of course it does not support, most of the time does not support vMotion. So let's take a look at what we're doing differently with the distributed architecture and how we solve the issue of scale, coverage, and complexity. So with NSX Distributed IDS, we move the inspection to every single workload by moving the functions into the hypervisor itself. So your hypervisor, once it's prepared for NSX, it instantly has the capability to inspect traffic. All what you need to do is actually, of course, configure your inspection profiles. With that architecture, you get full coverage at the most granular level to inspect traffic from one workload to another without any blind spot. And furthermore, we don't have to be selective anymore of what traffic we can inspect and what not, because of any throughput constraints. And because of NSX architecture, we can easily scale out. So as you spin up new workloads in your data center, the inspection capacity increases linearly with the number of workloads. Exactly the same as with our distributed firewall functionality. So it's also important to highlight that with our NSX IDS, we provide curated signatures, optimized, number one, for best performance and to minimize the computational overhead, and number two, it minimizes the false positives. This is really, of course, good news. So you can also build your IDS inspection rules with context-aware threat profiles, which is another extremely valuable feature to anyone who has seen an IDS in action. So because you know, the pain of signature fine-tuning and reducing the false positives, it definitely overwhelms the operators, and the important alerts get really lost among all this traffic or all this information, right? Alerts. So it takes months and to do the fine-tuning, and it's not a one-time thing, so you have to do it regularly whenever there is a new update, which is, of course, with an IDS happens extremely regularly. So not only we can do the context awareness for the sake of the fine-tuning, but it's also very important for the security analysts to help them prioritize the analysis of the alerts based, for example, on the criticality of the targeted workload. So if the alert is coming because and the destination is a critical application like a financial application or what have you, is definitely different than if it's a test server or something. So finally, with the NSX Distributed IDS, we get automation and operational simplicity because we're tightly tied to the application workload and life cycle. So the task of managing the IDS inspection profiles becomes much easier. So with the new, if there is a new workload is created, it inherits the same security policy and signatures similar to its security group. When those applications also move from one host to another, their policies move with them, so you don't get any redundant policies. Even when the workloads are deleted, the policies themselves are removed, so we don't have any stale policies with that design. So to summarize the benefits of NSX Distributed IDS, number one is the elastic throughput, which is the biggest innovation that we're having here, because we're utilizing the software defined approach. Second, it's simplified network architecture, so you can create virtual zones without the need to do any rewiring, and we can redesign your whole network zones based on only changes in the logical layer, not the hardware layer. You have the operation simplicity, eliminating the trade-off between better security coverage and complexity. And because of its unique distributed architecture, we can leverage our existing infrastructure and use the stranded compute capacity to run IDS functionality. That's it for the distributed IDS, and I would like, before I wrap up, to quickly touch on NSX Intelligence. So NSX Intelligence is our distributed analytics engine, which provides continuous visibility for the network and security teams. It has a consolidated inventory of workloads, processes, and provides this information in a visualization, all mode, and all in one dashboard. So it collects all this information from vSphere, NSX, App Defense, vRealize Network Insight, and the list will continue with the release of newer versions. So to achieve distributed analysis architecture while maintaining the history and the audit trails required for such analysis, the primary analysis is done at the hypervisor, and the metadata is sent to those centralized location. That way we can balance between doing analysis at scale and maintaining the history and the audit logs. And what I really love about NSX Intelligence is that it helps the security operators to follow ISO 27K Plan, Do, Check, Act through a single dashboard. It provides complete visibility of the workload inventory, the processes, and the network flows. It continuously shows the operator, the protected and unprotected flows. It can suggest the security groups and the policies that comes with it. And finally, it facilitates all the troubleshooting activities. And with that, I conclude today's session. I hope I was able to show the value of VMware's intrinsic security vision and how it's implemented across all your infrastructure, especially across your network, which was the focus of today's session. Should you wish to get in touch and get more information about today's topic, you can click on the Contact Us link you'll find below.